More than 100 years ago, in a mountain village in some place that's certainly not Texas, lived two dudes whose strange experiments with horror movies have since become legend. The legend is still told with horror the world over. It is The Legend of Loathsome Things, a horror movie podcast. More Cushing for the Pushing edition. Featuring Josh, your wizened professor of, I don't know, phrenology or something. And with him, as always, is his youthful apprentice, Pharaoh John Frankentwanger. Frankentwanger, how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well, thank you. And
you're welcome.
And yourself? What was it, Lord Hofsenpfeffer? I didn't.
Oh, for me, it was just Josh.
Just Josh, yeah.
The wizened professor.
Yeah, yeah. How are you doing, oh wizened one?
I'm doing quite well. I've been watching a lot of cool horror stuff.
Excellent.
That I'm excited about. We'll probably talk about some of those things after we talk about this movie, but there's a lot of cool stuff going on, in the past.
Yeah. What a good time that was.
Yeah. Man, what a great century that last one was.
Wow.
Yes. Let's go straight into it. We're talking about Terence Fisher's The Curse of Frankenstein from 1957. It is the first gory horror movie in color, specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the first horror movie to show, blood and guts in color. So this is, the Wizard of Oz of horror. And apparently it was a huge hit. They weren't expecting this to be a big deal, but then everyone got very excited for it, and Hammer Horror made a bunch of money off of it, and it kind of revitalized the genre, which had gone through a lull after people were sick of being horrified after World War II.
That's really cool. Yeah, I didn't know anything about the history of the movie. I mean, I of course the image of Christopher Lee as the monster is pretty iconic, but I didn't, I've never been a big Hammer guy, so I never really looked too much into it. And then it was one of those things where I was watching the movie where I was like, this movie is so bad, and at the same time,
it's so bad.
At the same time, it's got some things in it that redeem it. But man, you really have to hang in there for that to happen.
The directing is real bad, and it's like a stage play where
Mm-hmm.
almost everything is just on a single level, and it's all just moving from left to right or right to left, and they are not afraid to just watch a dude slowly walk across a room to reach that thing that he needed on the other side of the room, that he could have just started on that side of the room to start the scene, but then the movie wouldn't have made it to 80 minutes.
The Curse of Frankenstein, a side-scrolling point-and-click adventure.
Yes, very much so. It's like those arcade games, like the Ninja Turtles arcade game. Now we're going over here.
And everything it takes place on a plywood surface under which is a giant pocket of air, because every time someone takes a step, it's like, go. It's like, God, Jesus, the sound in this movie is so bad.
It's really bad. I like how every once in a while they were like, all right, for this scene, we're going to require stairs. Now, don't get scared, folks. It's all right. You just have to either go up the stairs. We're mostly just going to be going upstairs. Every once in a while, you might have to go downstairs. Be careful. But we'll make it through together.
So
except for that one guy.
and don't worry, I've got this recording of a single thunderclap, so if we need thunder anywhere, we can just keep playing that sound over and over again.
Yeah, do it on loop. Yeah. It's not a high quality film. Filmmaking had surpassed this level by the time they made this movie. This is very much like a high school stage production of a thing, but with some really fucking cool stuff in there too.
Yeah, that's true. It is a cool movie. Ultimately, it's one of those movies that definitely shows its age.
Oh yeah.
And looking at it now, it's it can be a bit of a struggle.
Which I believe what you're trying to not directly say is this movie's kind of boring.
It is kind of boring, unfortunately. I usually don't get bored in horror films, but I just saw Skrinkabadink, and then that was, nothing happens in it, but it was still scary.
Yeah.
I never really found it boring. I thought it was overlong, so maybe I did find it a little boring. But but this one, yeah. I mean, it was just such like endless scenes of just, I must now go and fondle this globe of glass for 10 minutes. It's like, you don't have to.
Yeah, there are literally lines in here where it's like, Paul, wait a moment. Listen, I want to tell you something. It's like, oh, just fucking say the thing, guy. What the fuck are you doing?
Paul, lend me your ear. Take a seat. Paul, I have something I must share. Listen to me well, Paul.
But I mean, it's a big touchstone in horror. This is the movie in which Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing met. Mm-hmm. Apparently, like they'd been in other movies together, but had never like been on set together.
Oh wow!
And apparently, their meeting was when Christopher Lee barged into Peter Cushing's trailer and said, "I have no lines." And Peter Cushing's response was, "You're lucky. I've read the script, and I don't know why I can't do a Peter Cushing without making him sound like he's from New Zealand, but that's how it goes."
Without making him sound like Peter Lorre?
Yeah.
I've read the script.
But yeah, so this was the beginning of their friendship and the beginning of their Hammer film collaborative time. Apparently, this was also the first of 3 Hammer movies in a row in which Christopher Lee chokes Peter Cushing's character to the point that he got better at it, and Peter Cushing started like sucking on red lozenges before the scene so that his tongue would be red.
Nice. Yeah, they definitely take advantage of the lurid color. Not and it's not that the whole movie's in color, of course, but it's not luridly in color. But when they go for it, they go for it. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's fucking great. and it's Christopher Lee. This is the first Christopher Lee movie we've done, and like, I don't know about for you, John, but for me, Christopher Lee is like the guy.
Yeah.
Like, there are other guys, like Vincent Price is a guy, Peter Cushing is a guy. There are lots of, the guys, but like Christopher Lee is the guy.
Yes, he is pretty much the guy. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's so fucking cool. Everything. Like, whenever I think of Christopher Lee, I think of Christopher Lee, but whenever I think of Peter Cushing, he's, it's Grand Moff Tarkin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's true. And the last 2 movies we've seen hasn't really fixed that.
No. I do like that this movie keeps up with the Peter Cushing as a flimsy little boy. Like, there's like one scene where he has to run around, and he is not good at that.
No, he's so frail, it's ridiculous. I like the boy they chose to play him like early on because he's so foppish. He's just like, thank you. It's like, Jesus, where did you find that kid?
Yeah, that kid does not dress himself in the morning.
Woo, too much ribbon for one boy.
That's a lot of ribbon for one young lad.
He looks like a baby shower.
That's awesome. Oh god. So Terence Fisher was I guess some kind of big deal director. He directed a lot of these movies and a bunch of other stuff. Like, he directed 2 episodes of the original Mickey Mouse Club. He directed a bunch of like Robin Hood TV shows and movies and stuff, but also things like The Curse of the Werewolf and The Gorgon and Dracula, Prince of Darkness and stuff like that. So he has a huge laundry list of like Hammer horror movies and just stuff from all over the place.
Nice.
Yeah, it's great. This movie's cool. It's just kind of shitty.
Yeah. Well, it totally kicked off like a whole fuck ton of Hammer Frankenstein movies. Like,
oh yeah.
they went nutty with that. I guess because this one was such a hit.
Yeah, and in a lot of them, Peter Cushing played Victor Frankenstein, but this was the only one with Christopher Lee as the monster.
Nice.
And in one of them, Peter Cushing played Victor Frankenstein and the monster? I don't know.
No.
I haven't seen it, but...
It's such an incredible, misuse of Christopher Lee.
Oh, yeah.
You could have any tall, skinny guy do it, which is, I guess, why they ended up doing it with Peter Cushing, but you could literally just have anyone. It's not like he doesn't, like he said, he doesn't even fucking say anything. There's a scene where he goes, "Ah!" and that's about it. Which I believe is when he announces what country he's from in the Miss World pageant. Have you seen that video?
I don't get that reference at all.
There's this. They had the Miss World or whatever, and it's just this montage of all the women announcing what country they're from. They're like Argentina, and they go through the whole list, and everyone sounds ridiculous, like China, and then they Colombia, and then they get to the French girl, and it's like ah.
Nice.
Something happens to her voice, and that's all that comes out. It's not even semi-verbal. It's just like, Ecuador, Egypt, ah!
Wow, that is very French, though.
It's incredible. And she totally does the thing, too, and she's got the sash. She's just like... Oh, my God.
I'll look that up. I'll see if I can get a link to that in the show notes.
Oh, it's wonderful. So, yeah, there's that. And then there's all the response videos, of course, which are... Oh, yeah. The drag queens who have to do all of them. Each one, he's got a different outfit and wig on. It's like, Ecuador! It's like, wow, this is the funniest thing I've ever seen.
I'm sure there are a bunch of overdubs, too, where, probably, it get overdubbed with the screaming goat noise and, stuff like that.
There's one where a guy's playing a violin, and then he stops. Right when he stops, that note she yells is a perfect note for when he's not playing.
Nice.
Just like...
Oh, man. There are things about the internet that are really great, and that's probably the only one right there.
The rest is shite.
Did you watch the Hitchhiker with a Hatchet documentary?
No.
Oh. It's a documentary about that guy that went viral back in 2013 because he was a hitchhiker. He's homeless, and he saved people from a dude that had gone crazy, and he hit the dude in the head 3 times with a hatchet that he just had on him, and everyone fell in love with him because before he did a news interview, and before he said anything else, he talked about how every human being is worthy of love and stuff like this, and he's just this really bro-y hippie dude that saved people with an axe.
Oh, I think I have seen that guy.
Yeah. And so they did a whole documentary about it because apparently now he's serving a 57-year jail sentence for murder.
Oh,
and so they did a whole documentary about it, and it is the biggest pile of shit I've ever seen in a documentary in my life. It's just, it's who wants some money and a few minutes in the spotlight to be in this documentary that is completely worthless. They even have some guy that's in a band and said that guy played with him in his band and said, oh yeah, that guy confessed to a bunch of stuff. And then there's just B-roll footage of him playing on his guitar. And it's fuck this dude. They even said, the court documents are oh no, everything that dude said is fake. It's the worst documentary I've ever seen.
It's just a documentary about nothing.
Yeah. One of the people that they have on there is the lady, she's the brains behind Keeping Up with the Kardashians, the reality TV show, because she wanted to make a reality TV show about this guy, but that never happened, and he never signed a deal to make that happen, so there's no reason for her to be on this documentary. They focus on her a lot.
Wow. Yeah. I love terrible media.
Oh my god, it's just people that want... fuck it. We should talk about this movie. John, do you want to start us off on the spoilerific recaparoo?
I would love to. Let's hit it.
Yes.
So the movie opens.
Ding!
Oh shit!
Sorry.
That's all right. It enters with opens and enters with off to a great start. Really, really dramatic music and so like a red screen with Gothic letters, which pretty much a hint. That's about as Hammer as you. It's blood red and has Gothic letters. That's Hammer.
There you go.
So there you go. We're watching a movie called The Curse of Frankenstein. It's made by Hammer. MC Hammer. Okay. So a cheesy wagon is riding through the mountains of some weird Gothic place that looks oddly like a backdrop painting. And they arrive at a castle where the bells ring really fucking long and annoying. And this old priest guy goes down into the castle. They take him down into the jail. And, you know, it's like we've mentioned this from the Witchfinder General, where, like, there are always these sweaty, disgusting, like, all jails are Gothic in England, apparently. So he goes down there. They're keeping Peter Cushing, Dr. Victor Frankenstein, down in there, who's completely out of his fucking gourd. And he's committed murder, or, you know, supposedly, possibly committed murder. And he's trying to, you know, he wants to tell his story to the priest because then he can, you know, get himself exonerated or whatever. So, you must listen to me, sit down, please. Oh my God, I'm sorry, I'm so excited. And then then we get the, and then the rest of the movie up until the end is told in flashback.
Yep. It's just a weird little frame narrative.
Yep. So we are, let's see, we go back to, you know, sorry. The young Victor Frankenstein has inherited his family's fortune. Everybody died and left him this giant Gothic fake castle and a whole lot of money. And what could go wrong? But he's just this little snide little asshole who wears a lot of ribbon and talks like a girl. And I swore I thought he was a girl first. I didn't know who it was. I was like, who's this obnoxious girl named Victor? So he inherits his place. Great. His, you know, it's, yeah. Okay, so
yeah, it's really like that. It's like that to watch this movie. Like, what's happening? Why? Okay.
His Aunt Sophie comes to meet him now he's like the Lord who's, you know, you must come and lick my ring. And so she comes and she wants to make sure that he keeps paying her, like, money for no reason, just because she's his aunt, I guess. Don't worry, I will continue to pay your money. And then her and his cousin Elizabeth fuck off. So then a tutor arrives. He wants to hire this tutor to teach him tutory stuff. And so he hires the tutor, and they have a little tutory training montage scene with all the, I'm learning, look at my pencil. And then
they try on different science outfits.
There's a scene where they're laughing, and then they're in a hot tub, and then, you know, and then all of a sudden, the boy is now 800 years old and has turned into Peter Cushing. What the fuck is that?
Yeah.
The doctor never changed a day, and Peter Cushing is now 900 years old.
Yeah, I love that they were like, you know what, we'll have Peter Cushing be the young man, and this other guy, we're gonna, like, sprinkle some fake gray on his sideburns to try to make him look older than Peter Cushing.
Dr. Paul Krempe.
Yeah.
So, that threw me for a while. It took me a while to adjust to that, because I just lost it. Like, as soon as, it was just like, oh, we are training. Oh, you're doing so well. I'm 900 years old. It's like, what the fuck? I was like, suddenly, okay, whatever. So now they're having some laboratory business, and he's got the most, like, badass pre-1960s, but very 1960s looking laboratory with like beakers with like Kool-Aid of different colors and, like lots of dry ice and
Yes.
giant plexiglass discs with white spokes painted that rotate in different directions to create that pattern. It's like, this is like,
that thing was fucking cool.
This is like the greatest child's playground I've ever seen.
Yeah, just fish tanks full of dry ice everywhere.
It was great.
Yeah.
So they drain this one fish tank that's got like the dry ice in it, and there's this wet thing in it. So as this juice drains out, then they take the panels out, and it's a puppy,
Yeah.
which they bring back from the dead, and then there's this whole bunch of horse shit about how Victor wants to create a new creature that he's essentially wants to fabricate the Ubermensch, is the way I saw it. And, so he's gonna get parts from all these corpses and do this thing. And Paul's kind of like, bro, I think like maybe you took the teaching a little too close to heart. Maybe we need to go back and go over a few things. And Victor's like, fuck off. And so off he goes to a gibbet to steal a robber's corpse.
Yep.
Which was pretty awesome.
It was good.
He gets a pair of hands from a great sculptor, which was weird. And then he goes to the Charnel House and acquires some eyeballs from like this one guy who's like, yeah, well, you won't find a better pair of eyes. Oh God. So that happened. So he's got his parts. He's very excited. He's still, he's not fully there. He cuts the head back at the lab. He cuts the head off the robber, drops it in some acid. In the meantime, he decides he's going to hit the road to find a perfect genius brain.
Mm-hmm.
But first he needs to eat. And then there's some maid business with Paul that I could not pay any attention to. Every time I watched it, I still don't know what was happening. I just put maid business with Paul, and like that's enough. And then Victor's cousin arrives, and now she's like a grown woman, but still half his age. And they're going to get married. Okay, sure, that's fine. You're going to marry your cousin. That's perfectly normal. Okay, that whole bit. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, it's very strange, and it doesn't carry over at all. And yeah, there were lots of scenes, especially scenes with the maid, where I like had to go back and rewatch it because I had realized that I'd stopped paying attention.
I thought they were the same person at so many times, and then I was like, somebody said Justine at some point, and I was like, who the fuck is Justine? And I was like, God damn it, does that mean I have to watch this again? Yep. Fuck.
The scene with the puppy bothered me because there's a point at which it's obviously a puppet, and then there's another point at which it's obviously a puppy, but it looks like they actually anesthetized a puppy because there's a point at which they're like poking it and it's just like twitching uncomfortably. I'm like, oh no, what did they fucking do? Like it did not look good.
Yeah, 1957, and that's anybody's guess.
Yeah, they like. I guess that could have actually been the puppy underwater, and they're like, "All right, yeah." And if you unsubmerge a puppy, then it'll struggle its way back to life. Hopefully, we've got more.
We've got plenty of puppies. We'll just keep rolling film. Eventually, we'll get one take where one of them lives.
Yeah, that was real uncomfortable. Also, the thing with the prosthetic head was censored out. Like, we get the implication that he cut off the head and put it, like, he says that he dumped it in the acid, but we don't see it. It was originally in the movie, but then it was censored in England and censored in America, and then that footage has gone away.
All I saw was this gauze-wrapped head that he puts in the juice.
Yeah.
Was that the same thing you saw? I don't know if there's different cuts.
There was a better cut that was like considered too morbid.
Man, Wow. Okay. Well, anyways. But a good thing, but fortunately they kept all that shit in about Elizabeth.
Yeah, we really needed all of that Elizabeth stuff, and Paul's complicated feelings about that little Elizabeth girl.
I could feel my brain just gushing out of my nose like water. It was just like...
So around this point, he's got the hands, he's got the eyeballs, he's super excited about all of the things, but we find out that Paul is not happy about all of this business. He's in fact getting quite uncomfortable, and he was like, well, what about the brain? He's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go get a brain, don't you worry, guy. And, While Victor's off seeking brains, Paul talks to Elizabeth about how he doesn't feel like she should be here at all, and definitely doesn't think that she should have to marry Victor because arranged marriages are not dope at all. Somewhere in there we also find out that Victor has been fucking Justine because they get a smoochy scene against a staircase, and it doesn't at all look like a TV actress kissing some old 60-year-old dude.
Nope. That's carrying on in the tradition of movies that we cover on Loathsome Things, where an iconic horror actor makes with the romance with a lady, and it is so uncomfortable.
It really is.
What? I mean, I can't wait to see what Christopher Lee's going to do in some upcoming movie.
Oh, yeah, it's real bad, and we get the thing, like, she's like, oh, who's that Elizabeth? What is she doing here? When are we gonna get married? And so that gives us yeah, gross.
Yeah,
Fine.
I mean, it was kind of awesome that they made him like a modern douche.
Yeah. The most douchey modern man available in 18
Because
whatever.
people in England in 1957 were like, man, that's believable, I know him.
Oh, yeah. No, the maid? Oh, who hasn't fired a maid over something similar?
I've got 3 heads in the freezer right now.
Oh, yeah, they're great heads.
Honey, come quick, he said gibbet.
Victor ends up inviting some famously smart guy to visit his house, and takes him up the staircase to show him Rembrandt's The Anatomy Lesson of Dr. Nicolaes Tulp, which is Rembrandt's most famous painting about the arm being cut open and the surgeon showing all of the musculature to people. Great. And then pushes the dude off the staircase while, like, screaming something like, "Ah, watch out!" And then we see the dude fall to his death. Super brutal scene, too. Like, the dude,
yes.
the stunt guy, like, lands skull, top of his head down on the ground and crumples. Like, I don't know how they did that, but it looked amazing.
I'm telling you right now, when they made that movie, they started out with a bin full of puppies and a bin full of stunt dudes.
Yeah.
And, like, that was puppy 37 and that was stunt dude 9. Because, like, he was just like, oh, you should back up a little bit. Perhaps back up. Oopsie daisy, what has happened? And that guy he falls like 10, 15 feet on his skull.
Yeah, directly on his skull. Like, you see his neck flop over. It's...
Yeah, and the floor does not move. It's not like he's landing on a cushion that's supposed to look like a floor or something. Like,
No, yeah, it's shot from overhead.
Yeah, I think that guy got hurt.
I think so, too.
I would be willing to put money on that.
Yeah, it's like Tubes from the Blind Dead, where they yoinked that lady off the horse, but, like, way more severe.
Yeah. Have you ever ridden a horse? You're pretty far up there, man.
Yeah, I don't know how they did that. It's a great shot, though. I mean, if I was a young piece of shit in 1957, I would have loved this movie.
That was a great moment. I love he's like, do you like this? Maybe it would look better if you backed up a bit. And he's just like, then there we go. I'm sorry, what happened?
God, whoever that stunt guy is, I hope he did okay until he died some years ago.
I mean, he got, it's on his tombstone, it says he got the shot.
Always got the shot that one time. And then we find out that Victor, out of the kindness of his heart, allows the smart guy's body to be buried in his family's tomb in one of the few scenes in this movie that we get where the stage has any sort of, like, difference in elevation.
It's just so funny because, you know, as this plays out, there's all these moments where, like, he could have easily, I don't know, this movie's dumb. So, you know, so we get a Hammer movie funeral, you know, a nice Hammer shot with, like, the mountain in the background and the funeral of that professor with the worst fucking accent I've ever heard. Oh my God.
They never explained... Oh, go ahead.
Well, I think he's supposed to be German, but I was going to say the entire country of Germany probably just... They were like, you know, like, look, we're kind of down on our luck right now because of the whole World War II thing and stuff, but if not, we would be in World War III right now over that character. It's like, never mind that he's a genius, my friend. Yeah, the guy was a genius. He got completely duped over the rail.
They never explained what he was a genius about to. He was just like, oh, well, you know, too much time in the lab can be a bad thing, too. It's like, what is this guy genius about?
Yeah, he was not particularly genius.
No.
So anyways, Frank promptly debrains him, and Paul shows up, and they have their little bitchy little fight with each other. What did you do so bad? It was, I just couldn't stand it. And then Paul storms off, one of many times he storms off. He keeps storming off. I'll never see you again. And then, like, 3 minutes later, he's like, can I borrow your comb? Like, it's just...
Yeah, he comes back.
That guy never leaves. Then he goes and he's like tattletales with Elizabeth about what's going on.
Kind of,
I mean, yeah, it's, I don't know, it's weird. That sounded really cool.
Oh.
And then she needs a tissue because she's just whatever, didn't care. So we're back to Victor Frankenstein. He's prepping what is essentially the mummy in a milk tank. It's like a giant aquarium, which and once again this show has brought on the weirdest parallels. The last movie, Aquarium.
Oh yeah,
girl dies in aquarium. This one got man comes to life in aquarium.
Could very well be the same aquarium.
It might as well be.
Yeah.
Marcus Welby.
Oh, they did a great job of making the body float. Like, I guess it was just ultra salinated because it looked like an actual body when he lifts the arm, but it is just really bobbing up on top.
It is very bobby. So yeah, he's got the mummy floating there. He starts twiddling and fondling his Kool-Aid beakers, and then he turns on the crackle wheel. And then the whole time that thing is on, it's really annoying.
Yes.
So we get all that, you know, he's trying to bring this thing to life. So whatever. Then we see Paul in his lovely satin robe in his room where he's just kind of, you know, pacing back and forth. He's very stressed out. We hear the thunder sample, which repeats 2 or 3 times, exact same sound. Victor now he wants, even though that they've had this falling out and nothing has been resolved, like the door was pretty much left wide shut.
Yeah.
Victor still wants his help, and like he goes to ask his help, and then basically he's like, "Oh, you're helping me, motherfucker!" Like he doesn't. It was so weird, and yeah. So then we hear glass break back in the lab, and Victor runs in. They run in, and the monster has gotten up, and he, you know, you see this like mummy thing looking at him, and he reaches up, and apparently the gauze that was wrapped around his head was also cut in the shape of a mask. Because he was able to just tear the part that covered his face off, revealing paper mache man, like with that weird doughy white face. I mean, it's like so cheesy looking, but great at the same time.
Yeah, and it worked out in their favor. Did you read about the makeup effects? Okay. So they were gonna have, like, latex or whatever and be able to reapply it each time, but then they figured out that it didn't work, like, hours before it was time to start filming. And so the makeup guy literally did, yeah, he used basically paper mache and had to reapply, like, start over from scratch each day, which is, like, why it worked in their favor that they kept doing more brain surgery on this guy, so, like, each time it got to be a little different.
That's great because he didn't, he didn't look like an actual dead person, but he did look pretty creepy, very ghoulish.
Yeah.
And he had that one cloudy eye, which was a really cool touch.
Yes. Yeah, that was good. And also I like where his the cut seams are, and there's that little line of, like, red blood shining out of there. It's like, yes, very good. I
mean, Hollywood has really not taken advantage of the contact lens thing, other than maybe the last 10 or 15 years. You see a lot of contact lens use, like the famous one that looks bloody where the white part is. You see those a lot now because it's a very effective and cheap thing, but for some reason it took them forever to figure that out. They were doing more like Passion of the Christ, where it's like, we'll just go in and digitally make his eyes look like carrots. It'll be fine. Jesus Christ. Yeah. So, putty-faced cloudy eye is strangling Victor. Paul intervenes, and then Paul fucks off again. Yeah. Because he's not feeling it. Oh, are you okay? Fuck you, I'm leaving.
Exit stage left.
I will see you in 40 seconds. The next morning, the monster escapes. Oh, no. And Vic and Paul, who wasn't feeling it and was going to leave, this is the second time now, is still there, so they give chase.
Yep.
With a shotgun. In the Bertie Fogwoods, there's a blind grandpa and his boy.
It is the Bertie Fogwoods.
A really badly overacted grandpa who's blind, and his grandson are going on a hike. Grandpa sits down because he's tired. The boy runs off. The man thinks that the boy has come back, because apparently now he thinks the boy is 9 feet tall and weighs 800 pounds. Yeah. And it's, of course, the monster, who is wearing a delightful double-breasted peacoat. Yeah. And he completely fucks Grandpa up. Grandpa, like, picks up his walking stick and is like, and then the creature, like, takes it and breaks it in half. And then Grandpa's on the ground, and as the monster gets closer, his scream gets louder, and I'm like, wait, I thought you were blind, dude. Like, what? Apparently he was so scared he could see again just long enough to be murdered by the monster.
I loved that this is another entry into the peasant with a shitty backpack full of twigs, just like in Hagazusa. I don't know why movies always depict shitty European peasants with backpacks full of twigs, but they're all over the place.
Dude, it's because classism is so alive and well in Europe. I mean, it's just, that never went away, that sense of, like, I'm better than you because my bag has no sticks in it.
Look at this crap-filled peasant. He has a bag full of sticks and his one very special stick.
Oh, is that a longer stick you have?
My, that stick looks expensive. It's almost the height of you and would be slightly more difficult to break in half.
That's why Frankenstein breaks it, or the monster breaks it, because she's telling him, you're a peasant.
Die under my heel, peasant.
So Victor and Paul are still meandering through the woods trying to find the monster. Oh, how will they ever find him? Oh, good. He just walks out of the woods. Yeah. And Paul shoots him in his bad eye. Perfect shot, right in the eye. He shoots him, looks like he's fine, and then he falls to the ground. Apparently he's dead. So it's like, okay, great. And I love this where Peter Cushing goes, "You shot well." Which I swear he probably did that to be a smartass. Yeah. So then they cut the next scene is them like tamping down the dirt on the mound where they've buried the monster. And Victor is upset now because Paul shot his monster. So they go back to the castle. Paul visits Frank once again.
Yeah.
And to let him know he's leaving. Yeah, right.
Peace. I just can't quit you.
They act like bitches once again, and then Paul leaves. While all that's happening, apparently the Frank... Well, not while all that's happening, but then we see back in the lab that Victor has exhumed the monster, apparently cleaned him off very well, and gaffed him up, hanging like 15 feet in the air. That was pretty cool looking.
Yeah.
It was a great shot. I called it, he was gaffed from the super goth rafters.
Nice.
And he says, "I'll give you life again," but with a much higher pitched voice.
Yeah.
And then he bickers with Justine. This is where I was totally lost. And I had to read synopsis about it. I had to go to fucking Wikipedia. Various people got it wrong. I clearly was the only one who had no idea what was happening. So basically, essentially, Victor and Justine are bickering because had convinced her, she's a chambermaid.
Yeah. He
had convinced her that, she's going to marry him. He knocked her up. And he laughs in her face when he finds out she's pregnant. He tells her, yes, I'm marrying Elizabeth, my regular maid. That's what threw me. Maid. And Justine is his chambermaid. Because she calls her Justine refers to her as a maid, which would explain why she has that stupid bonnet and apron thing that she wears around sometimes, Elizabeth. I think she's...
Is that what's going on?
That's what I took from that. If I'm wrong, I could be wrong, because it made no fucking sense. All I know is Justine was extremely jealous, and so he mocks her, and then she goes to, I'm going to turn you in, and she goes into the lab, and, of course the monster kills her immediately. And, so that's good. Infanticide, as in this movie, that's good. Yeah, so that was, there you go. I got through that, and then the rest of the movie was smooth sailing for me, because I was just like, okay, there's only one lady left, and her name is Elizabeth, so no matter what happens, I know that's Elizabeth.
But then it does get a little bit more confusing, because then we get to the wedding. Mm-hmm. We find out that that Elizabeth invited Paul, and it's like, oh, tension around all that, because he left again. And then we get a scene, it's the wedding, Paul's not there, but we get a shot of some guy at the punch bowl. And he's practicing his speech, congratulating everyone, and with each congratulations, he takes another sip from his punch bowl cup, and then keeps refilling it and coming up with more people to congratulate, and then his wife comes and tells him, what are you doing? Stop that, we're getting out of here. And then that never comes back into play. It was just like, let's get a joke about alcoholism in here.
Yeah, a little side thing, yeah.
Yeah, it was very strange. But, and then it goes on, it turns out that Paul shows up. Elizabeth's like, we thought you weren't coming, but no one else is there, so it's obvious that he did not, in fact, come at the right time. Whatever, it's fine. He's there now, and Victor is excited because Victor wants to show him something. Ooh. So Victor and Paul go into the lab. He sees that the whole thing, he's been doing the stuff again. It's whatever. He confronts Victor and he says something to the effect of, I will see that you pay for these atrocities. And while Paul and Victor are arguing, we see Elizabeth just kind of wandering around aimlessly because she's an NPC, and whenever Victor's not around, she doesn't have anything to do except bump into walls. And so, while she's bumping into walls, we see that the creature breaks free and starts lurking on her and peeking at her through windows and shit. And then randomly, while Paul and Victor are arguing outside, they look up and they see the monster just like on a balcony or something, and they're like, oh no, and Victor's like, Paul, quickly, we must go help this situation or something, and Paul's like, fuck you, dude, I'm gonna go get the police. And so Paul gets out of there. Victor runs out of breath very quickly while shimmying around the castle looking for his double-barreled pistola, which he grabs and then like must grab onto his chest and his little pocket watch chain out of breathlessness while ascending a flight of stairs. And he finds Elizabeth moments before the monster reaches from behind and like grabs her, and so Victor shoots the pistol right on into Elizabeth's chest, and then shoots it again because it's a double barreler, and also manages to hit the creature in like the shoulder, wings him, and Elizabeth collapses, almost falling over the edge of a balcony, and the creature's like, and comes after Victor Frankenstein, who now has an empty gun that he flings, like, get out of here! Ooh. And the thing keeps coming, and so all he's got left is his little oil lamp that's lit, and he throws it, and we see it catch the chains on fire, and slowly but surely the enormous Christopher Lee monster goes up in flames, and then he falls through a moon window, and into a tank of fire extinguishing water below, and is no more.
That apparently turns out to be really easy to kill the recently dead monster.
Yeah, and apparently all you needed to do was increase his internal body temperature by like 1 degree, and then he's kaput.
Yeah.
And then we return to the frame narrative where Victor is telling the priest this story. He's like, I was ruined. My grand experiment was ruined. And then we find out that Paul is there to see Victor, and he comes in and pretends that there was no creature and that it was simply Victor who killed Justine, and blah, blah, blah. Paul ends up leaving with Elizabeth, who is there, which we never find out if Victor thinks that Elizabeth is dead or alive or whatever, but we certainly get the impression that Paul and Elizabeth be fucking.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. He's like, I remember that one time when I met you as a little girl, and look at me now.
And she, of course, inherits everything, doesn't she?
Oh, I bet you're right. I didn't think about that.
Yeah,
because she's married to him.
They're just hitting it all over the lab.
Man, 1 day of Married to Victor, and it was time to cash in. And we see Victor led away by the guards. He's very despondent, and we can see this great shot in the background of them raising the blade of a guillotine, and then the end credits roll with that guillotine with the blade raised all the way to the top, and at no point during the closing credits does the guillotine descend.
No.
Which, big missed opportunity there.
Big missed opportunity. You know, every single person that went to see that movie in the theater watched that and didn't read a single credit. Because they were just waiting for that blade, because that's exactly what I did. I waited for that blade to fall, never fell.
Nope. That was Hammer's way of saying, fuck you!
Oh.
Yeah. Movie over.
Movie over. It was interesting. One of the things that's cool about this movie is that, I was thinking about it just a minute ago, is that when you compare the Hammer movies to the Universal movies, it's really like a role reversal thing, because there's always been this perception that we're like the hillbilly stepchild of England, because we are, and we literally are if you go to Appalachia. And so, it's like Hammer is like the kind of movie that you would think Americans would be making, like in the 50s and 60s, like these lurid, like maybe not the Gothic part so much, but like the overly, colorful and just, overdone. And then Universal movies are kind of classy. They're Frankenstein is a legitimately good movie, and what's his nuts that made Dracula is super talented. He's the guy that did Freaks, and Todd Browning, And those are good movies. And this movie is entertaining, but I wouldn't.
Yeah.
It's certainly not. It's not like Frankenstein was okay, but I'm so glad they made this because this really, even though it really did add, in a lot of ways, like, yeah, I guess Universal kind of laid the groundwork for modern horror, even though it really didn't define it so much. But it was more defined by things like Hammer. And I guess if you think about, like, British culture, we always think of Britain as this, like, really stuffy place. But, when you repress people, you get, people, they have desire for weird, lurid shit. And,
yeah.
Like, you get stuff like Hammer, basically. I'm sure they ate that stuff up. Like you said, it was really popular.
Yeah, hugely popular. Like, big financial windfall. Like, it was just great on all fronts. And yeah, you're right. It's this movie is kind of shitty, but it really, like, catches your attention in ways, and it really is like that American flip on it. But I love what it did for horror movies in that it was like, this is kind of like where it was like, oh, you can make a shitty, cheap horror movie, and also it's gonna be awesome. Like this is why we have Texas Chainsaw Massacre and so many other great classics where they weren't shooting for high cinema. They were just like, oh yeah, let's make a real trashy piece of shit that's awesome.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it really did kind of profoundly change the genre, and or at least it was part of a series of movies that did, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think arguably this one did, because this was like their first big color smash anyway, put it that way. And that image of Christopher Lee with the makeup is pretty iconic. It's not up there like with the very, very tip top, but I mean, anybody who's into horror movies, even if you haven't seen this movie like I hadn't before we did it, I was familiar, with that look. I was always like, well, that's kind of cool. And I always assumed it was when I found out it was 57, I was actually pretty shocked.
Yeah.
So I mean, kudos for all that.
Yeah. Great work on that stuff. Just, oh man, so boring.
So boring. And in 20 years, Star Wars came out.
Yes.
Like, that's where film went in 20 years is incredible.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, film was already way better than this when this movie came out. Like, I think Hitchcock was already making movies, and like, there just like this was like around 20 years after Gone with the Wind. Like, this movie only pushed one boundary.
Yeah, that's true. You're right.
Yeah, but it did it in a great way.
Yeah.
I ended up giving this movie a 3.8 out of 5 Loathsome Things, almost entirely for the like impact that it had on the genre, and also it's Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. It's the start of so much great stuff. So most of those points are purely for that and for the impact that it had on horror, and not actually for the movie itself.
Yeah, that's understandable. I don't know. I went all over the place with this movie. This is honestly, I think of all the movies that we've watched, other than the ones that we've just eviscerated, I guess. This probably ranks as the least enjoyable movie that I've watched that so far in the show. I've liked all of them, really, even the bad ones I've liked, and I mean, I did like this one too. It's not like I gave it a 3, so it's like I didn't. Yeah. I definitely enjoyed it, and I absolutely recommend it. And it does have stuff in there that is good. But overall, it's pretty boring.
It's really boring.
It's kind of a piece of shit.
Yeah. If you cut out all of the parts of them, like just moving around the set quietly, except for their footsteps, you could probably turn this into a really good, like, 55-minute long episode of, like, Masters of Horror or the Cabinet of Curiosities, something like that. Like, if you just got rid of the cruft, it would be great.
I felt like it was riffing a lot on just kind of character dramas that were probably really popular on the BBC, and, like, just crappy, like, soap opera-y type stuff. That's pretty much where that movie was going. Throw in some goth and gore, and you've got yourself a movement. A bowel movement.
You've got yourself a successful movie company for, I guess, maybe 20 years, 30 years. Yeah.
That's apparently still around.
Oh, for real? Nice.
Yeah, apparently. I don't know. Something like that. But anyways, it was, I enjoyed it. And I'm totally glad we covered it. It was definitely fun to talk about.
Oh, yeah, totally great. It was easy to forget that that's Christopher Lee behind all that schnoz, but it was, every once in a while, I was like, man, that guy's just fucking awesome.
He really looked great, and he really did look sharp in his pea coat. I was impressed with that.
Yeah, he could host the Family Feud like that.
It's like, I'm a crazy murderer, but first I must put on this lovely jacket with double-breasted buttons.
And I really love the way that they changed his makeup, whenever Paul comes back and sees him and he's done brain surgery on the guy again, and now he's got a big chunk of hair missing, and he's just it's that's fucking awesome.
That was really cool. And I guess I had to read this to kind of pick up on it. I guess, even though I saw it and was aware of it, but apparently the reason why the whole thing failed, or at least one of the, I guess this is the reason why, is because they had the power surge because of the lightning. And so he got extra Dr. Frankenstein, and that's why it must have fried out his genius brain and turned him into some sort of monster.
Oh, I thought it was because whenever Victor went down there to get the brain, Paul was like, no, and pushed it, and it smashed into glass, and his brain got all scrambled.
I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't matter, but obviously, because I was like, okay, he kept talking about this beautiful physical specimen, which he just looked like Chris Novoselic, and then, he has a genius brain, which I was like, what the okay, he wasn't a genius to begin with, and then whatever. And then beautiful, wonderful hands. Now that paid off because he clearly was able to button that peacoat perfect. I mean, it was perfect. Yeah. That button job was good.
Yeah. At no point, he'd never slipped on a button. Just boom, perfectly
just like
done.
That. Pow.
Yeah.
He was so strong and graceful that he could just tear his gauze mask off. Whoop! That's beautiful hands.
Yeah. I wanted to mention, in addition to not being afraid to watch people walk across a room, this movie also, we've got a lot of fish tanks in here. This movie is not afraid to watch a fish tank drain at the rate that a fish tank actually drains.
Yes. So slow, you're not sure if it's actually draining.
Yeah. It's like, oh, good. I'm glad we've made progress on this drain.
That was the first time that happened. I'm like, why are we all standing here? Everybody's just kind of standing, looking at this. Oh, wait. Oh, I think the level's going down.
Yeah. It's at the speed at which Gatorade is dispensed from a giant cooler.
Oh, boy.
Oh, fuck that. All right, so other movies. Oh yeah, that's a 6.8 out of 10. We've got a few minutes to talk about other movies. We're going over an hour, but fuck it, I don't care.
Yeah. Well, I saw Skinnamarink.
Skinnamarink.
Saw Skinnamarink, and I loved it. It's very creepy, and I would highly recommend watching it. It's not a lot happens. I don't want to say much about it because I think it's better to go in cold. I went in pretty cold, and I think that helped a lot. It's not like it's hard to follow. I guess you could say it is because it's not a standard kind of narrative, but it's very disturbing, and I really enjoyed it. That was my big horror watch. I've been reading some horror fiction, but I haven't completed anything. So I don't know. What about you?
That was in theaters. There was also the one that I ended up going to see because Melanie was willing to see it and not super into Skinnamarink because it looked spooky on the trailer. We ended up seeing Megan, the James Wan and Blumhouse movie about a murder doll. It's pretty good.
I've heard it's actually pretty entertaining.
it's got a very strong sci-fi element to it,
Yeah.
which they don't hammer on because it's a horror movie. So, like, where they could have taken it in a, like, AI / Bicentennial Man / iRobot direction,
Mhm.
they really just were like, no, this is a horror movie. We're gonna do this thing. So, like, at a certain point in the movie, it kind of veers off into, well, that's a little absurd, but whatever. But it was honestly very enjoyable and good.
Wow, that's cool.
And, yeah, I look forward to the sequel.
Oh, of course they set that up.
Oh, yeah, already there. I'm sure it's going to be spelled like Megan, but instead of a 3, now it's a 2 for some reason.
Yeah.
I also finally watched Prisoners at your recommendation.
Did you enjoy it?
No, fuck that movie, actually.
You didn't like it?
Are you familiar with the term dad porn?
No, but I kind of know where you're going with it.
Yeah, it's very that. It was a good movie. I actually did enjoy it, but it was so strongly dad porn, like Taken, where you have to go rescue your abducted daughter.
Yeah.
But this one takes it in the other direction of you're not an action hero. What you have to do is you have to torture a person with limited mental capabilities because you think they took your daughter.
But you're never really sure. But that's what I liked about it. Like, he was savage with that guy, and they went way over the top as far as depicting, the abuse that he gave that dude. And at no point was he ever. They made it very clear. At no point was he ever sure that this was the right guy, which was wonderful. I thought that's pure horror movie fodder. Yeah, the movie's completely is silly. But I actually like that for the same reason you didn't like it, which I totally get.
No, it was good. There were problems, but it was good. I liked that. He's like, all right, well, I'm such a masculine man that I'm not going to tell my wife that I'm torturing this guy. But what I am going to do is I'm going to loop in my next door neighbor, whose daughter was also abducted. He's black. And then I'm going to tell him we have to do this together, get him involved. Then he's going to pussy out, tell his wife about it, and then she's going to be the badass of that family and, like, continue up the torture and stuff. It's just a whole thing. Also, so it's Hugh Jackman, who he did a great job in it. Like, he was perfectly believable.
I didn't like him in it.
Well, I mean, it's Hugh Jackman.
Yeah. Hugh Janus.
There was also Jake Gyllenhaal as the super creepy police officer with the Freemason ring and, like, all of the shitty finger tattoos. Did a great job in it, but every once in a while you had a scene with it's just the two of them talking to each other, and that was the worst shit. Whenever both of them were like, no, look at me. No, look at me. No, look at me. Like, fuck every scene in that movie with just the two of them because they were terrible together.
That's 100% fair and accurate.
Yeah.
I think the reason why I liked it so much is because that's the kind of movie that if I just saw it, apparently this happened to me 1,000 times. I just saw it and was like, I don't know what the fuck is that? And just went on, like it never even caught my attention. And the only reason I watched it was because my daughter was like, how does it sound like a good one? So we watched it, and I was like, "Oh, this is actually really sick. This movie is demented, And
it is.
And I guess if I had gone into it expecting it to be good, I probably would have had the exact same reaction you did. Even though I would have. I liked the excessive dad porn part, but yeah, I totally agree. But I like Hugh Jackman okay as a person. He's whatever. He seems like a nice enough dude, but he sucks in this movie. Like, he's just too... And it's not even his fault. I think it's exactly what they wanted him to be. But it just was... His character was such an asshole. Like, I don't feel for this guy at all. Like, at no point, I mean, like, the whole idea was to say, okay, this guy's gone overboard. But, yeah, okay, he's gone overboard. But at no point did he ever stop and think, okay, that's probably enough, Yeah. I don't need to build a wooden cage around the bathtub with, like, an air hole and then, just torture him with cold water. And because like when you see his face the next day after he's been beaten, whew,
Yeah.
that was rough.
Yeah. Yeah, that part of it was rough. It was a great set too, like that creepy abandoned I guess apartment building. There was a lot of great things in that movie, a lot of really cool stuff. It was just at times I was like, I don't fucking care. And also, I thought that the ending was stupid as fuck. I really hated all of that. The whole thing with the whistle felt really contrived.
It was.
Yeah. And I don't know. I also thought Dune Part 1 was boring as shit.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, I guess I'm not a Denis guy.
Yeah, there could be, yeah.
Yeah. There were parts of the first Dune movie that were good, but, like, then there were battle sequences where it was obvious that no one gave a shit that a battle was happening. But it was good. It was the drippiest I've ever seen Hugh Jackman, including in movies where, like, his thing is that he, like, pulls up out of a tank of, like, viscous fluid. He's even drippier than that in this movie.
It's true. And Paul Dano's great, as always.
Who's Paul Dano?
The guy who's getting tortured throughout the film.
Oh, fuck yeah. That dude is awesome. Yeah. I was like, I think I've seen him before.
He's the Riddler in the latest Batman movie.
Holy shit, really?
Mm-hmm.
I just watched that and I have no recollection of that.
They play him like he's the Zodiac Killer, almost. He's the one that, he's this...
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like, kind of the way it ends with him, his character's a little weird, but he was good in that, too. I like him a lot. So, yeah.
So, yeah. Mixed review on Prisoners. There's some real shitty looking movies coming out. That M. Night Shyamalan movie about the family that has to sacrifice one of them in order to save the world. That movie can instantly go eat its own ass.
Yeah,
Fuck that movie.
Not only that, but that movie's based on a novel, and they give no credit to the author for using his story. And he's a well-known author. Like, he's kind of like the new mainstream, like, horror author guy from the U.S. He's kind of the guy right now. And I read that book, and it's okay. But I thought it was shitty that they didn't give him credit for it. Like, it's probably in some micro credit somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, and now from the mind of M. Night Shyamalan. Like,
from the author, Kevin Sting.
Yeah. Yeah, I will not be watching that movie. It looks like shit.
It's so much garbage. I'm not excited about that at all. I will say, I thought I was done with the Marvel superhero movies because all of it has been very shitty lately. But the new Ant-Man, which has never been one that I've been interested at all, looked actually really good in the trailer. I was like, oh, that's neat.
Wow.
They shrink down to the quantum level, and it turns out that the quantum level is full of, like, humanoid-shaped weird little guys. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'll probably see it. I've never really cared for any of those movies. I've seen all of them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, every once in a while, there's one that's like this huge, awesome surprise, like that first Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Yeah.
But most of them are just shit.
Was it the second Thor, the Taika Waititi one? That was pretty good.
Yeah. That one was good. Then the one that came after it was, that's kind of shitty. They had one cool thing where, like, the soldiers of the god realm, instead of having red blood, they bleed gold fluid. I was like, that's fucking tight.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else in that movie was pretty garbage.
And I don't remember what movie was Fat Thor in, because Fat Thor is awesome.
Fat Thor was, I think that was in one of the, like Avengers Endgame or something.
Is that what it was?
Fat Thor was great.
Fat Thor was great. And have you seen, just to switch real quick, that game series God of War? Have you seen any of the cut footage from the latest version? Because it takes place in Asgard. And
oh, no.
There's a big scene where he fights Thor. Thor is like 9 feet tall, and he weighs about 700 pounds. Like, he's just fat and hairy and disgusting. It's amazing.
That sounds awesome.
It's really cool.
I've never gotten into those games. Like Shadow of the Colossus was cool, but all of
Mhm.
the like chain combo fight and like go up a thing and now hit the pedal 50 times real fast to do the thing. That's never been my jam. But I'm also a PC gamer, and that's very console-y.
Yeah, that's really not my jam either. My son showed it to me, but I was like, the cutscenes were great.
Yeah.
I at no point watching the cutscene thought, I want to play this game. Like, oh, that's really cool. Don't give a shit.
Yeah. The Last of Us, the series or movie or whatever, it looks cool.
It starts tonight, I think.
Okay.
That's why my daughters came over, because she wants to see it.
Nice. Yeah, that looks good. I still haven't played the game, but I definitely need to. And all of the reviews that I've heard said it's good. Maybe it's missing something, a little je ne sais quoi, but it's good.
As far as gameplay goes, it's not that interesting. It's just an adventure survival game, like any other. But the story's cool, and just kind of following like the premise and stuff makes it fun. I really enjoyed it for that reason. I didn't, as far as it just being a game, it wasn't, it was just a game.
Yeah. I'm one of those too. Like anytime I play a video game that's like very story heavy, I like instantly go in and set it all the way down to easy because I do not give a shit about that game.
Oh yeah. Oh, I always go for easy. I don't give a shit. I just want it to be entertaining. I mean, what do I have to prove? I don't give a fuck. Yeah. Like, oh, guess what? I can push this button 100 times in a quarter second. Like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, fuck all of that. And I watched for the first time ever, the movie that we're going to be reviewing in 2 weeks. We won't say it here. Don't spoil anything, but fuck yeah, that movie's awesome.
Isn't it amazing?
That is crazy.
I had been when I first saw it, I had been reading, and I won't give it away either.
Yeah,
I had been reading about it. I don't remember where, but it just showed up somewhere, and I was like, "What? I've never heard of this movie," and I found it online. Was just lingering somewhere, and so I watched it, and I was just like, "What? This movie is amazing! If this movie gets out to the right people, it's going to become a smash," and that's pretty much what's happening now.
Yeah.
People are really starting to come around like, well, this movie's crazy.
Yeah. I don't know how this movie got buried for so long, but it's awesome. I think one of the reasons that we started talking about it was a while back on that same place where you can find a movie on the internet. There was a movie that came out with a semi-similar thing going on that wasn't as good, and you were like, oh yeah, this movie reminds me of, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, and then now, it's I'm excited for 2 weeks from today, folks, when y'all will listen to us review something really special.
Yeah, a Pantheon movie.
Yeah. Okay, John, anything else? Any last bits that we need to go over before we let our fellow friends and listeners go about their biz day?
No, like you always say, go watch horror movies.
Yep, and like you always say, I'm sorry you have to die.
Yeah.